So, fellow fitness freak, did you kick off today's regimen with a couple of Rocky-style raw eggs?
I did not, but right after we finish recording, I'm going to head over to the local meat processing plant. I'm going to throw a few punches at a side of beef, and that's going to get me ready for the next episode.
Ooh,
What about you?
I will. I barely stumbled into this chair, let alone punching giant decapitated cows.
Anyway, the reason we're talking about Rocky is we're going to be talking about it a lot more over the next hour because this is the Spirit of 76 episode of Stupid Gen X Tricks, the podcast for people who used to be cool.
It is. It's a show featuring us two guys who've been around a while, who got to be friends way back in the 1990s when we found ourselves working for the President of the United States. But in this hour, we like to just forget about politics and talk about culture, the music, the movies, the people, and everything that shaped our generation back in the day and see how it reflects today.
Yeah, and today we're starting a series of episodes where we're going to look back year by year on the times when us Xers were growing up. We'll look at what we remember from where we were in our lives at that point. We're going to take a look at what was happening in the world, what was most popular in the culture, and what are the things that, whether they were popular or not, have had a lasting impact on our generation and on everyone else.
Yeah, so this kind of kicks off a series where we do these just ourselves. And then the subsequent episodes will be with guests like everyone's used to. But we actually got a little feedback that people liked just us as well as us with guests.
Which is bizarre to me, frankly. But,
Well, we're damn good looking. We're damn good looking. So that's...
Give the audience what they want.
Yes.
Which is why I expect you to be shirtless for the next episode. But...
Yeah, I will do that. And also, I think we should do some like Sean Cassidy style pinup posters that we put up for sale because those will definitely sell out.
As long as we only print one or two of them, yes.
Yes. Okay. So this episode is, as you mentioned, on 1976, the Bicentennial. And while it's a little unfair because I was just a wee thing, like you Anglophiles say, in 1976, I was 6. I've combed the depths of my memories. I watched Inside Out. I was
just record. I was 8 for most of the year. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves with your youth here, Dave.
You were a big boy. You were a big boy.
All right.
You want to run us through the run of show?
Yeah. So here's how it's going to work. We're going to start out talking a little bit about where we were in our own lives at that point, not just what ages we were, but whatever was going on at those ages. We're going to do a quick rundown, a very quick one of some of the major things that happened in the world.
Outstanding. And then, of course, in our final segment, we have the much beloved Wormholes section where we look through obscura that fascinates us, and then we bring it to you for your enjoyment. So you stick around for that.
And first, we need to do our official podcaster duty and remind people that if they like what they're hearing or seeing, they would be doing both us and the world an enormous favor by gently hitting. Please don't smash the like and subscribe buttons because you could do damage to your devices, but gently give them a good solid tap and make it easier for other people to experience the joy that is us along with you.
I appreciate you're looking out for everyone's electronics gear, and I know they do too.
All
right. Well, shall we take a quick break and get back to it?
Absolutely.
All right. We'll be right back after these messages.
In the average TV set, over 1,000 different things can go wrong. And as your set grows older, you've probably danced around every one of them. That's why Sharp invented the Sigma 500 chassis. 3 IC chips replace about 500 parts. 500 fewer parts to go wrong. And that's why we think Sharp is the best engineered color TV in the world. The Sigma 500 chassis. It makes Sharp the one to watch.
Okay, we're back. Let's get to it.
Right.
1976 is this episode's year, and there will be future episodes on other years. So in your bicentennial year, did you go big on the celebrations?
We did. I mean, my memory is it was pretty ubiquitous that there was like everything was bicentennial this, bicentennial that, and there was always lots of flag waving and bunting, lots of bunting on everything. Um, all of which I think I liked as a kid, and I still kind of like all that patriotic stuff. The
What were those
two,
drums that you'd always see, like
yeah,
those
like
guys marching with the little
the fife and drum
fife and
guys.
drum? That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were
But
everywhere. They were in like
yeah,
commercials. You hear that in the background.
yeah,
And there was a
lots of
theme. They had
lots
a
of
theme that
revolutionary
year.
one. They probably did. I don't remember it.
There was. We'll find it. We'll drop it in here and look like we meant to do it all along.
The two activities that I distinctly remember, like my family making an effort to go take part in for the bicentennial, were both actually sort of disappointments. One of them was the Freedom Train. I don't know if this came through Michigan. It was like a train that somebody organized full of historical artifacts and things in the train cars that just made its way across the country. And I remember my mother taking us to go see it and feeling, even as a kid who was into that sort of thing, that it was pretty lame. And then the other one was we went to go see, there was the Tall Ships Parade into New York Harbor down the
Oh, that
Hudson
was supposed to
River.
be a huge deal.
It was a huge deal,
Yeah.
but the day that we went to wherever we went to go watch them, in my memory, it was just like really shitty weather, and so the sailboats couldn't sail; they were just sort of sitting
Oh.
there, and it was cold and not that fun. And again, kind of a letdown, but I do have like good memories generally of the whole bicentennial vibe. What about you?
Yeah, I just remember it was. I mean, we do have listeners and viewers who were not alive then, so we've painted a little bit of a picture, but essentially it was the 200th anniversary of the United States of America 200 years ago, or 200 years ago from
From them.
1776 to
From the
1976.
signing of the Declaration of Independence specifically. Yes.
There you go. Yeah. So there was so much focus everywhere all year long. It also coincided with the Olympics, which ratcheted up another few things, a few levels. And it was just, I mean, ubiquitous was the word, everything. There was bicentennial soap. There was bicentennial toilet paper. There was, they were painting the fire hydrants like soldiers, and there was and bunting everywhere. Not just, it was like July 4th every day of the year, basically.
Yeah.
And then July 4th was like completely roided out. It was like a roid rage of patriotism. I know I was like interested in all of it, and I have this memory of the bicentennial quarters being a really big deal, and you'd hoard them like they were extra valuable. Nowadays, there's all these state quarters that come out all the time, so an unusual quarter strike is not interesting or abnormal. But back then, it was like, what? They're changing the quarters?
For like years afterwards, you would notice when you got a bicentennial quarter and remark on it.
And evidently people still hoard them today thinking they're valuable, but they're not. There's one or two that were,
one of these days, Dave, they're gonna hit. Those people are gonna be rich, and you're gonna be sitting there picking yourself that you mocked
yeah,
them.
perhaps. Yes, indeed. And also a couple other things that I remember very distinctly from that year. First of all, Detroit Tigers, Mark Fidrych, the pitcher, the bird.
That was such a phenomenon.
He was bigger than Disco. I mean,
Yeah.
Mark, the bird was like, he was spectacular. And for those who don't know that name, he was an extremely quirky, very lovable, and for a year anyway, maybe the most effective pitcher in baseball. And he'd get up on the mound and he'd like talk to his baseball before he threw it. And the Tigers were
get
no
down on
good
his
that
hands
year.
and knees and like smooth out the dirt on the mound is the one I remember seeing. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like your crazy brother that everyone loved, and and he was like a heck of a pitcher, so everyone loved him. And the Tigers had a terrible record, but they were selling out all the games that he was pitching because everyone was so excited about him.
Yeah.
So the bird, he occupies a special place in our lives.
Absolutely.
even folks who didn't grow up in Detroit.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
then, of course,
it was a huge phenomenon, as somebody who was just kind of a sitting in New York as a baseball fan. I mean, everybody used to like imitate him, right, and in Little League and stuff.
yes, yeah, he was the greatest.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, my parents, while we were not a lacking family, we lived with, in a nice house and had all the food we needed and all that kind of stuff. They
This was
were
before your
notably.
boarding school days, obviously. So
I hadn't gone to boarding school yet, but
yeah,
yes, I'm not pleading poverty, but I did have a poverty of pop culture in my
yeah.
house because my mom thought it was all stupid and they both believed I didn't need all that stuff. Whatever stuff my friends had, I didn't need that stuff. And if I wanted that stuff, I needed to earn the money for it, and then I needed to earn the money for the bus ride because they weren't going to give me a ride out to the mall, and on and on. So I just didn't have the good toys that my friends had, except every once in a while when I managed to save up the money and take a bus. And the one that I just killed me that year was Stretch Armstrong. Do you remember Stretch Armstrong?
I remember, and I didn't have one, and I actually don't know even if anybody I knew had one, but I remember the TV commercials.
Wow. So it wasn't like you guys weren't fascinated with Stretch Armstrong?
I mean, it was memorable enough that I still remember it. And
Yeah.
maybe friends did have it, but I don't. Yeah, we were more GI Joe oriented, I think.
Well, I guess Stretch Armstrong's a little more Quakerly, and
Yeah,
perhaps a little more buff than GI Joe. GI Joe was a little wimpier back then, but
GI
yeah.
Joe
Anyway,
kicked Stretch Armstrong's ass, Dave.
no way, no way. Stretch Armstrong is indestructible. Except now, for those who don't know who Stretch Armstrong is, he's this little rubbery figure who looks kind of like Hulk Hogan or something, and he was real buff and rubbery, and you could pull him apart. Like you'd grab his arms and you pull him, and they just stretch and stretch and stretch. There was some kind of goo inside him that allowed him to stretch out, and then he'd slowly retract. So it was kind of fun to watch that all happen, and you had to be kind of strong to pull him apart. And then, but the thing people talked about, and only the daring, slightly less bright children in school were willing to do this, there was a rumor that if you stuck him in your freezer, he would explode. And
Oh.
yeah, those were the days when.
Did that turn out to be true or not?
I mean, I have a vague recollection of reports pouring in from Sunset Street in East Lansing that perhaps Chris Figginshaw might have had an exploded Stretch Armstrong in his freezer, but there's also another kid on that street. Maybe, I don't know. So the answer is I have no idea, but there were rumors,
All right.
like most things in life. So David, since you were not obsessed with exploding Stretch Armstrongs, what was commanding your attention in those days?
I mean, I remember in that period of life just spending a lot of time playing wiffle ball in wiffle ball appropriate seasons, and then playing Kill the Carrier. Kill the guy with the ball. Whatever. There's a name for it that I think people use that I don't remember people in my world using that I'm not gonna repeat because it's not really culturally acceptable these days. But it's the game where basically you've got a football and there's no real object to the game. Somebody has the football and runs around, and everybody else tries to tackle him and piles him on, and then somebody else takes the football and runs around, and everybody else. And we would spend lots and lots of time playing this pointless game. I was not allowed to play organized football because somehow that might have been too dangerous, but somehow doing this was perfectly fine by my parents. So we spent a lot of time in Richie DeMarco's backyard doing that. And then just remember being very into the Olympics that year, both winter from Innsbruck, Austria, and the summer games in Montreal, which were particularly big for us because a lot of my family on my mother's side of the family lived in Montreal still at that point. And had been there many times, so it was kind of a cool thing. It was almost our thing. And
so you're pretty much an Olympian.
Yeah, I mean, I have a gold medal. I just don't like to talk about it. That was the Nadia Comaneci year. I think she was the big star. Sugar Ray Leonard was a big star. Franz Klammer in the Winter Games in the downhill ski.
I have no recollection of that name. None.
Great Austrian skier.
Oh yeah.
One of the few skiers I could name, honestly, in the whole entire history of skiing. But and then of course the decathlon triumph of the person who at that point was known as
Caitlin Jenner?
Bruce Jenner. Yeah.
Oh, Bruce. Yes.
At the time.
Which brings up. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you stole my thunder. Those were all my memories too, minus the obscure Austrian skier. But I'll drop Lassie Viren, the obscure Finnish runner that you probably weren't paying attention to.
The name's vaguely familiar, but yeah.
Yeah, Lassie Viren. It's a cool name, kind of like the dog on the show. But yeah, I remember all of that too, although we weren't sitting down to watch it, so it was only because, the TV limitations in the household and also the lousy TV that we had. I don't even know if cable existed that year. Did cable exist in 1976? Feels like 80 or 79.
I don't think I don't think, it may have as like some obscure thing for people in rural communities, but certainly not in any place that either of us was.
I think this deserves a comment. Did cable exist in 1976 in any practical way? I don't mean like in some lab in Los Alamos. I mean in people's houses in suburbia.
Yeah, no, I'm fairly certain that it did not. For people who were older than elementary school age at that time, there was some big stuff going on in the world that we're not going to dwell on too much, but a few of the major events that happened included the death of Chairman Mao in China.
It was a real tragedy in your family, right? You communists. Did you have like a little ceremony? Some like do you have like a tea in his honor or something? I don't know. What do you do when a Chinese leader dies if you're Chinese?
I have no earthly idea. And we'll note that we were my family was always of the anti-communist left. They were part of the right wing of the socialist movement, if that makes sense. But anyway, Jimmy Carter got himself elected president that year, which was a stunner to many people. And of course, the big event of the year was the major agreement reached by the United Kingdom and Iceland regarding cod fishing rights in the North Atlantic, which is something that I think is, not talked about enough these days.
Well, I think you're correcting that right this second, and God knows that is an essential thing. Now, I feel like when we were in DC, there was a book you always saw at Kramer Books, the amazing bookstore in DuPont Circle, called simply Cod. And it was something about how like cod ruled the world and cod was such a big thing. And,
the whole New England economy in the early days was cod and whales and slaves, I guess too, but were sort of the major drivers of the fact that we now have places like Boston.
Okay, great. I'm so pleased you brought in slavery to our episode. That's going to really pump up the people.
Just trying to keep it real.
That is true, and yes. So I prefer cod as a subject matter. So let's get back on track and talk about some of the other less noticed things that were happening in real time, like the formation of the Apple Computer Company in 1976. And Atari, and Atari introduced Breakout. So that's some good stuff right there.
And it was an arcade game at that point. They didn't have the home terminal developed yet, but Breakout was a killer. Also, as we do these episodes on the years, we'll note some of I guess only during the years when the people being born were still part of Gen X, which they were in 1976. So some of the key Gen X figures busy being born that year included Chadwick Boseman, Senator Elisa Slotkin. Is it Elisa or Alyssa? I think it's Alyssa Slotkin. Peyton Manning.
We worked with her.
Yeah, and
she was at the White House with us. Do you remember her?
No.
Yeah. I think she was at the National Security Council, maybe.
Oh.
I think.
I mean, I probably met her at some point, but I don't have any recollection of her. Yeah. One of the two of us went on to become a United States Senator. Um, I think it was her. Anyway, Peyton Manning, also born that year, who did not work at the National Security Council, but did some fine work for the Indianapolis Colts. And Baby Spice
I don't think he
was.
I don't think he would have been in the volunteering to be in the National Security Council during the Clinton administration either.
Probably not. Yeah. Anyway, that's just a sampling of the Gen X folks who were born that year. Now let's get on to talking about
Wait,
the culture.
Did you mention Baby Spice?
I thought I did, but yes, Baby Spice.
It went right over my head. I was so busy making implications about Peyton Manning. Baby Spice. That's a great addition to our generation.
There you go.
Yes, indeed. All right. Okay. So let's get to the subject, the specific subjects now, and a topic that comes up regularly, but not with the detail that I think we might have thought it would have in our show, which is movies.
Yeah.
So let's correct that a little bit and get and drill down a little bit here.
Yeah, it was a big year for movies of all kinds, and the huge hit, as we already alluded to in our opening, was Rocky, which has really had a lasting impact, and I think still holds up really well as a film. I was trying to remember whether it was the first movie with the like training montage sequence, or whether Chariots of Fire maybe came first.
No, Chariots of Fire was 80s. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
This is definitely
This definitely. So that was definitely the thing. And my big recollection of Rocky is just that it played. My little hometown, there was one movie theater. There were other theaters in other nearby places, but if you were a kid and you wanted to go to a movie without your parents having to drive you there was the one theater, and Rocky was just there for the entire summer, like months on end. So I saw it, and I think every kid in town saw it at least 3 or 4 times. I mean, it was just, you'd just go see Rocky again.
Were you sick of seeing it by the end of the summer? Were you done with Rocky?
No, not at all. I would go watch Rocky right now. I've never been sick of that.
Yeah, it's funny, Sly Stallone was not known as Sly back then, and he really turned into kind of a meathead, and in a way he was that in Rocky, but his later kind of persona obscures like that he was a really smart guy. I believe he wrote that. Did he direct it?
He might have directed it too. He definitely wrote it.
Yeah, I mean that's a really, really good, and it was his first, right?
Yeah,
like it was like an indie movie kind of, and then it blew up huge.
Yeah, so
that was an incredible accomplishment, a great role. Apollo Creed is a great character, and I mean punching the meat, and that's a great movie. And there were a lot of great movies that year. Of course, Taxi Driver, which we were going to attempt a "you talking to me" sequence at the beginning of this thing, but
I mean, Dave, if you want to do it, feel free.
No. I will follow your lead on that. So Taxi Driver, the classic film with Robert De Niro, and then Harlem County, USA, Barbara Koppel's essential documentary that's considered one of the all-time greats about a coal miner strike in Kentucky, right, around 1974, and the events associated with that. And then, of course, Bound for Glory, which it was not as famous, but that and Rocky share the first films to have the Steadicam, which my friend Jonathan Brown's dad, Garrett Brown, invented, and became the an essential feature of movie making ever since. And now, of course, there are all these gimbal cameras and stuff, and drones and whatever, but it all started with the Steadicam. And of course, that classic shot of Rocky running up the steps was shot by Garrett Brown. And also later in The Shining, when they're running around, when Jack Nicholson is outside, or in the maze, or when the little boy is on the big wheel. That's all the genius of Garrett Brown happening right there.
Very, very cool.
One other movie that I wanted to mention, well, two actually. One that I've discovered recently that I didn't know about was called Mikey and Nicky. Do you know this movie?
Never heard of it.
Okay, this is a great movie and it holds up nicely, but it's also a really interesting period piece. It's about a couple of small town mobsters in a very ragged part of Philadelphia. And so it's fun to just see what rundown Philly looked like back in the day, but also Peter Falk, Ned Beatty, John Cassavetes, the actor in this really brilliantly written film, written and directed by Elaine May, who wrote the screenplay for Primary Colors, among other things, and of course Ishtar, which was not her finest moment probably. And then of course we can't forget the most important event of the entire year. Forget the presidential election, forget Stretch Armstrong, forget Rocky. It was the first midnight screening of Rocky Horror.
Wow.
At the Waverly.
When did Rocky Horror actually come out?
Well, it was the first midnight screening was, I think, in the late summer of 1976 at the Waverly Theater, which is now the IFC Center in New York City in the West Village. But Rocky had the theatrical run that was not successful, and I don't know whether it was a previous year, like 75, or if it was all in the same year that took place.
Yeah, that was the question. Is like, did it start with the midnight thing, or was it like a cult movie that had been around for a little while that somebody had the bright idea of doing this thing?
I'll get out my Google GPT machine and see what it tells me as you comment.
I'll talk while you do that. I'm going to comment on the cultural masterpiece that I love best from that year, probably, which is The Bad News Bears, Dave. And some friends and I watched it again, I think last year, maybe the year before, and it is a great, very enjoyable movie that no parent would allow their child to see today, probably. So much inappropriate stuff going on, but just funny and touching, and obviously Walter Matthau is brilliant. The whole thing is, all the kids were just great, and it's a great story.
Jackie,
really
what was
well
his
done.
name? Jackie, the actor. Jackie, he was so great. He was like the tough kid.
Yeah, I don't know the
pitcher.
actor's name. Yeah, Kelly Leak was the character, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that was a classic. And also, is it possible that was the first time a movie featured children that were swearing? Because that seemed revolutionary to me.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't the first, it had to be pretty damn close to it. And
Foul-mouthed
yeah,
children outside of your own home is the funniest thing ever, especially when they're just awful. And I mean, Bad News Bears, I think, is probably PG-13 by swearing standards now. But what was that? What was that one about 10 or 12 years ago? Was it called Good Boys? Was that it?
I don't know it. I don't think. Yeah.
I will check on that, but that's also a sweary kids movie that just makes me laugh over and over.
Yeah, and I think we can let's just set out a policy statement here that Stupid Gen X Tricks endorses child swearing.
Sound like you're going somewhere else with that.
across the board.
Yes, the sweary children are love language, really. So get your kids to swear at us in the posts, and we will send you Sean Cassidy posters of ourselves.
There you go.
Yes, that's sounds like a journey to the bottom of civilization, all in one post, really. Okay, well, Carrie came out that year too, and Logan's Run, and The Man Who Fell to Earth, and King Kong. Those were all good ones.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
that whole period of the mid 70s was like both in the sort of like Hollywood actually making art kind of was a high point, but it was also like the era of the massive blockbusters. I mean, movies were just like played a role that they don't today.
Yeah, it was defining. It was, a big movie defined the conversation in a way that our next subject, the small screen televisions, also did. So if there was something big on TV or something big in the theaters, that was pretty much all anyone talked about.
Yeah.
So now I'm a little handicapped, as we know, because of my cruel parents and their withholding of television from me. And really, Dad, you're off the hook. We know it was all Mom's fault. But let's recall that recently we talked to Richard Gurman, the writer and producer of lots of things, including Happy Days. And, well, he didn't produce, but he wrote on Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, and they were at the top of the charts. And the amazing thing about looking back in 2025, looking at the ratings list, is how huge the ratings were in the 3 network era. Those shows were getting a third of the households of the whole country watching those shows.
It is mind-boggling to think about that, and certainly, look, every kid at Bedford Road Elementary School was watching those shows and coming in on. I think they were both on Tuesday, and so you'd come in on Wednesday morning and talk about them, and everybody wanted to be the Fonz. I think I even remember
Christ-like figure, right?
which is so funny when you see what like nebbishy guy Henry Winkler is in real life. But I remember trying to like delicately suggest to my parents that like they should buy me a leather jacket and I could be cool, and that was not the kind of thing that was going to go on in our house. But TV just had such a big impact on our lives as kids, even though like. I mean, I think when you're talking about the comparison of the 70s to today, right? Like there's so much more high quality television, I think, today than there was back then. But in that world, it just had such a big impact on us. I was talking with one of the shows from that year that is funny to look back on was Battle of the Network Stars, which was a big thing. Which for people who are not old enough to remember was this show that they would have like an Olympics featuring actors from popular TV shows. And it was like the 3 teams were the 3 networks. I don't know how they sort of managed to do that, from a like competitiveness, but they did. And
that really ought to be revived today. That would be a fun show even now.
Except it would be like 78 networks that you'd have to have. Right? It would be a fun show even now. And the big event, of course, the concluding bit of the episodes would always be with the tug of war. And so I remember then that there was like a little bit of a tug of war fad, like at summer camp and at school, like when you'd have an event, you'd have a tug of war, and it was a whole thing.
Yeah, my camp, we had the coolest tug of war. This is at a camp in Vermont called Farm and Wilderness. And we, at Timberlake, there was a bunch of different camps. Timberlake was the one I was at, which was boys under age 14 or something. And we had a tug, well, it wasn't really a tug of war. It was a tug of war, but it was one-on-one. But the twist was that you had a rope and you had 2 sides. But instead of doing it on level ground, you did it on tree stumps. You were each on one of 2 tree stumps. So you had to win by being stationary and having perfect balance. You couldn't just lean back because the other person would just let out a little and you'd fall off the stump. So that's a great game, actually.
That is pretty cool. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. It was great. I don't know if I can find a photo of it. I bet there's something somewhere. But okay, David, I'm a little aghast. You haven't mentioned Charlie's Angels and Farah Fawcett. I mean, were you questioning your masculinity at age 8, or did you not notice Farah Fawcett pictures hanging on your friends' walls?
No, I mean, everybody had the poster. I did not. I would not have been allowed to have such a thing.
I found an autographed Farrah Fawcett black and white of that shot at a antique place in like Massachusetts years ago, and I don't know where the thing went. I mean, I should put it up in the house, and all the guests would be so impressed.
They would be, Dave. Everybody would be just amazed that your mom allows you to have a poster that has a little bit of a hint of a woman's nipple through her bathing suit in it, which of course
Well,
was
she didn't. She didn't. I didn't have any of it.
yeah,
But that was
yeah.
The only poster in my room growing up was a picture of a little girl, because I think mom really just preferred to have had a little girl. So my friends always thought that was really strange that above my bed was a portrait of a sleeping girl. And really, they're correct. It was weird. What's up with that? I'm settling my mom issues here on years after her passing, clearly, here on the air, sharing it with the people, because that's what they want to hear about.
That's all right. The story I love about the impact that these big TV shows had on our generation, MASH was another show that was really big and really popular.
Math?
In 1976, yeah. And
I don't know what that was.
MASH? You don't know what MASH was?
Oh, MASH. I thought you said math, M-A-T-H. Oh yeah, MASH, of course.
Yeah. So a few years ago, I'm having a conversation with my brother-in-law and his two kids, who were both like college age at the time, or maybe a little bit older, and who are smart kids. And we're talking about something completely unrelated to television. And I can't remember how, but the word triage came up in the conversation, which to my brother-in-law and I was just like, that's a word that people use. And the kids were like, I've never heard that word before. What does it mean? And we looked at each other and were like, they never saw MASH. They did not grow up watching, emergency battlefield surgery every week and hearing people talk about triaging patients left and right. So it just wasn't a word that crept up, that I feel like everybody our age just knows what that word means because everybody watched MASH.
How interesting. That also brings up the original film directed by Robert Altman that I only saw recently. I had never seen it before. And it's quite a different thing than from the TV show.
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Also, a film he did that I might mention something from a little later was his film Nashville that came out in 1975, which allowed me to discover that there was something called country music.
There you go.
Sort of.
I
didn't see the movie. I was too young.
Right. Two shows that I loved at the time that I still love today that both debuted in 1976 that I just want to mention. The Muppet Show, which can do no wrong, and the Gong Show. Dave, I don't know if that was part of your world.
Yeah.
I love.
Oh yeah, no, we did Gong Show stuff at school. Like people brought kids came as Chuck Barris,
Gene, the dancing machine.
That's good stuff.
The Unknown Comic, the whole thing. That was a huge deal. And it's funny that they were both. I mean, they're both twists on the idea of the variety show, which then went out of. Well, I guess there's still like competition shows like the Gong Show are still a big thing, but the kinds of shows that the Muppet Show was spoofing, like the Ed Sullivan kind of thing, just don't exist anymore.
Muppets was great, and of course Beaker, the judges, Gonzo, Kermit. I mean, of course, and Miss Piggy.
Yeah,
and like Miss Piggy references, even to this day, like she's. I don't know. I wonder if our feminist friends would say they would rather Miss Piggy never existed as a cultural figure, because it's certainly been used as a battering ram. Wasn't there something? I feel like just
a lot of women of our age, see her as like an icon, because she was this like. Even though she was willing to always throw over anything to try to land Kermit, she was also this like take no prisoners, don't fuck with me, badass.
That's true. That's true. And she was funny. There was nothing better than Miss Piggy in a rage, really. That was one of the more entertaining things you could watch on the Muppet Show. Yeah. But someone got kicked off a plane like in the last week or two over a Miss Piggy reference.
Really? I haven't
Like,
seen. I didn't
yeah,
see that.
yes. Like a
Yeah.
lady got called Miss Piggy, and she went crazy and like punched someone. I don't remember what exactly it was, but yeah, Miss Piggy. She's still present
Yeah.
in our culture to this day.
Yeah, I was like when my kids were little, um, we got hold of DVDs of like the whole set of every season of the Muppet Show, and we used to watch them in the minivan on long car trips.
Hmm.
And they loved it. They both loved it, and then like had a good working knowledge of 70s celebrity culture as a result. So that
Mm.
was an educational benefit.
Alice Cooper came on, right?
Alice
Was there a
Cooper.
bat?
I mean, I remember Harry Belafonte
Yeah.
was a big favorite. Charo
Kareem, yeah,
made her
Kareem
appearance.
Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah, yeah. Pretty much everybody was
Yeah.
found their way to the Muppet Show stage.
I'm marveling at how much these shows were present in my psyche, even though I wasn't watching them at home. I guess I was watching, like catching bits and pieces of them at friends' houses or at my grandparents or something like that. But like Sanford and Son, loved that show.
Yeah.
Jeffersons, Alice, gosh, so much. All right, we better keep moving, or we're gonna talk the whole show about
All right,
TV.
but kiss my grits, Dave. That's what I have to say to you about that.
Kiss my grits, David.
All right.
All right. So, how about music? Is it music
Yeah,
time?
it is music time.
All right. Okay. So the Eagles dominated the charts. Hotel California came out that year. Their greatest hits collection came out the previous year, but was top selling in both 75 and 76. So yeah, give us your rundown.
Yeah, well, so what leapt out at me from looking at the charts, and I won't read through the whole thing, but of the top 10 best-selling albums of the year, there were no fewer than 5 greatest hits collections. It was the Eagles, James Taylor, Doobie Brothers, Linda Ronstadt, and Creedence Clearwater Revival, plus Frampton Comes Alive. And, look, those are all to differing degrees fine artists, who deserve greatest hits collections, I guess. But like it says something not great about popular music at the time, that like greatest hits collections as opposed to new music are what's selling best. It's an industry that had become very ossified, and I think very much in reaction to that is part of why punk started to emerge that year. I mean, 1976 was really the year. Certainly there were bands in the few years prior to that. There was, Velvet Underground, Television, people like that around New York, who were making music that you would later come to think of as being proto punk. But like 76, you had
I think Velvet Underground was more 60s,
no,
evidently.
well, that's what I'm saying, is that had happened earlier, but you go back and listen to it and see what they were and the influence that they had, and say, yeah,
Oh, right.
that was
Yeah.
punk. And 76 was when you had the Ramones' first record come out, which I actually was listening to a little bit this morning, and it just will not disappoint you in the least. And really where I think the breakthrough of punk was happening in London in 76, where the Sex Pistols first, and then the Clash, and then others were their first albums didn't come out till the next year, but 76 was when they started releasing singles and started performing gigs and getting attention and just blowing people's minds with this music that was just, short and fast and angry, and you didn't have to be a great musician, and you didn't have to have, a stage show, and you didn't have to have any of this stuff. You could just go out there and do what you wanted to do. You listen. I mean, I could listen to Never Mind the Bollocks, the first Sex Pistols album, or the Clash, the first Clash, and like there's just the energy and the sort of joy at being angry, if that makes sense, that comes through out of that is so alive. And it was when, and that was the year that the sort of the punk fashion started to emerge, with people doing paper clips and torn things and the mohawk haircut. And I kind of vaguely remember as a kid, that there might have been like a Time magazine story or something that I had seen, that had pictures of this, and adults were all aghast about what kind of social, decline this might have represented.
Well, I think now's the time for me to introduce my poster, don't you think?
I think it is. It's extraordinarily relevant to this conversation.
So I mentioned like going to antique stores and looking for stuff, and years ago I came across a interesting poster that was in this odd little frame in upstate New York, and I'm going to hold it up now. So it's and then I'm going to put it up on screen. I'm going to go up close, but key thing to notice here is Max's Kansas City, which punk aficionados will know
was one of the breeding grounds, along with CBGBs. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And this is for announcing Max's Easter Rock Festival, and this collage, which includes all the notables of the era. Andy Warhol is in here. All the Ramones. It would be fun to like do a who's who in all of it. And then, so it was framed like this. I'm like, that's so cool. And I bought it. And then eventually I took it out because I was just curious. The framing was so bad. And I realized it was two-sided and it had the schedule. Okay, so this is from March 25th, 1976. And David, I'm going to just read because this is an excerpt from the Soho Weekly News, March 25th, 1976. A writer named Pat Wadsley wrote the following. If you missed swinging to the Mercy Beat in Liverpool's hallowed cavern in the early 60s, yes, we both missed that.
Yes.
And if you failed to turn on to the San Francisco sound until everybody else's mind had already been blown, all is not lost. Rumor has it New York is currently the scene of the third great rock reformation.
Yep.
And it's about time, too. Rock and roll has been getting so straight and serious lately, what with a rock crit establishment and rock stars visiting the White House and all, it's imperative that rock gets back to its roots, if you'll pardon the expression. And that's just what's happening. Rock began as an exciting, spontaneous, raunchy, even slightly subversive type of music. And those qualities have been obliterated in a sea of more. I don't know what that means. It's capital M-O-R. And these days, disco
something
sounds.
Oriented rock. I'm trying to remember what the M stands for. Yeah.
The groups of New York's underground rock scene promise to bring back the feel of real rock music. There's no mention of the word punk in here, even though that's what they're really talking about. What they lack in expertise, they make up for in energy and enthusiasm, and taking into account the fact that the scene is for the most part underground, they can be as raunchy and as dirty as they please, at least for a while. For this rock scene isn't staying underground for long. The talent of the individual performers, composers, and musicians, and the support of the artists, writers, and friends in the underground society ensure emergence into the above-ground rock scene. How prescient is that?
I mean, that is exactly what was going on, and it's exactly like that movement, and that, I feel like shaped like all of the stuff. I mean, almost everything that happened that was exciting and energetic in popular music, for at least in white popular music, for the next 20 years, maybe 25 years after that, all grew out of that movement and out of a lot of the people that are on that poster.
That's right. And okay, so I want to just dive a little more into the minutia here. So the festival schedule, this was mid-April 1976. April 11th, Wayne County and the Backstreet Boys, not the Backstreet Boys
different Backstreet
we talked
Boys,
about.
Yeah.
That was the drag queen Wayne County, also known as Jane County, and then the Heartbreakers, which were not
the Tom Petty Heartbreakers.
No, this is the New York Dolls remnants, and then below them Blondie.
Yeah.
So Blondie, Talking Heads, Ramones, Suicide, The Planets, Marbles, The Mumps, like these are major bands. On my birthday, April 13th, 1976, playing at Max's were the Talking Heads, Suicide, Harry Toledo, and a band I later booked, Pere Ubu. That's an amazing lineup.
Yeah.
And Blondie wasn't even a headliner. They were opening for the Ramones. And a band called Poppies was also on the bill. I don't know them. So here's what I wanted to mention. What do you think, besides the fact that they had not gone mainstream yet, what else do you think is notable about all these bands in that month?
I don't know. You're not...
Okay, get this. Not a single one of their albums had been released.
Yeah.
Not one. And you alluded to that. So, yeah, Blondie didn't come out till the following year. These guys were, like, this talks about them as underground, and they were underground. So anyway, I love that poster so much. It definitely needs to be framed now.
Yeah.
And I want to mention one other thing. This is for people who, this is quasi Wormhole like, but you'll notice this. I thought the artwork was pretty interesting, and happily, it was not anonymous. It says photo collage by Lee Black Childers, and Lee curiously has 3 E's in it. And I would encourage people to Google Lee Black Childers. He was a fascinating character. He was a photographer, but he also managed some bands, and he eventually ended up managing Sid Vicious around the time that he died, who he described as a nice boy who just got confused.
Confused or heroin addicted, one or the other. It's not clear, but yeah.
Yes, all of it.
I guess the two often go hand in hand. Other interesting things from that year musically, AC/DC, Dirty Deeds, Thunder Cheap, which is music that I will say, like, the heavy metal always kind of passed me by. But even as a kid, I could recognize that, like, if you were going to pick, something to listen to from that genre, that group and that album were going to rank high.
Does that mean you're about to rock?
If you're going to salute me, then I will, yes. And then the other album that leapt out at me from that year, not so much for the music as for the album cover, the artwork, was Boston, which had that, the spaceship guitar picture that I just remember, like, and I would have been a few years later in, like, middle school, that, like, any kid in my class who had any artistic ability whatsoever, and that was not a group that I belonged to at all, would just seem to spend, like, hours drawing that picture over and over and over again. And people always had the T-shirt, and it was just such a ubiquitous thing.
It was. There's some, like, the artwork of that era was a big deal. Like, looking at the liner notes, looking at the fold out albums when they were double albums. It was, and tracing paper. No one had an iPhone, and could just scan stuff back then. Yeah. Of course. I was always taken with and wishing I could recreate the Hotel California logo from the Eagles.
Yeah.
That was like that. That was such a beautiful, I don't know, neon kind of script style. And the Eagles, that was a good band. And something that is often said about their breakthrough, just jumping back to them for a second, that I do think is really interesting is how that is, I think, considered a key point in countries crossover, that they weren't a straight country act. They were, I think in the description I read, rock, folk, and country fused. I don't know if that's exactly right or not, but there's definitely country tinges to the Eagles sound, and something that, obviously hit the mainstream. I mean, that greatest hits record you mentioned, I think it was the greatest selling album of all time until Thriller.
That could very well be. Yeah. No, they were huge, and probably don't get enough credit for their talent as well as their popularity. But
so many great songs.
Yeah. The other album, by the way, I just wanted to call out from that year, is one that I've only really listened to at all very recently, but absolutely fell in love with, that lots of people fell in love with long, long time ago, which is just Hejira by Joni Mitchell, which came out that year, which I think is an absolute masterpiece of a record.
Yeah, and is that the one that Chelsea Morning is on?
I believe Chelsea Morning. The song that leaps out most at me is California,
Hmm.
and it's just good stuff. Anyway, let's wrap up.
Well, the notable fact on that song was that was the Joni Mitchell track. Chelsea Morning was how the Clintons named their daughter.
Yes, I've heard a few variations on that about the song or about the place of conception, depending
Oh,
on which of the
ooh,
Clintons was
ooh.
discussing it at different
Oh,
and
really?
when that was happening. Yes, but
Do you, is this a viral moment? Are we? Is this news? Are you breaking
no, it's
news on?
no. This has been like in articles and stuff
Oh,
that
okay.
that at
All
some
right.
point that it had something to do with that, but
Okay.
just briefly, I thought we should mention books because we want to try and pretend to be smart, and books were still really
Be great.
a much bigger part of pop culture. I think still in the 1970s than they are today, and they still sort of are today, but not to the same extent. And I didn't have a lot to say. It was interesting. I thought Agatha Christie had two bestsellers during the course of the year, two different books, and then the big nonfiction hit of the year was Roots, which we'll be talking about more as a TV show in. Not sure if it was 1977 or 78, but we'll find out.
That's good stuff. The books from that era, of course, I wasn't reading any of them because I was a kid, and I was reading, The Giving Tree and all the great Shel Silverstein stuff and Ferdinand the Bull. Those were my essential reads of
All
1976.
right. You had just all the lefty parent classics right there.
No, I mean some of that came at like Shel Silverstein. I feel like was really big at my preschool. I don't think we even owned a Shel Silverstein. No, we had the Giving Tree. There was a lot of that over at Westminster. I forget what it was called. Anyway, no one cares. The books that were out that year that jumped out at me in retrospect were number 8, Even Cowgirls Get the Blues by Tom Robbins. That is a great book. Perhaps not Uma Thurman's greatest role in the film version, and certainly not Gus Van Sant's greatest movie, but a hell of a book. And also, I love those kind of wild tales like that. And then also one that film related, I didn't even know was a novel before it became a movie. I only knew of it as a movie. Was Ordinary People.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, it was a book, and it was number 30 that year. So I guess that's what got Robert Redford interested in directing it.
All right.
Turned out great. I don't know if I assume the book's pretty good.
Sometimes a good movie comes from right, The Godfather famously, the novel is not that good. But
Mario Puzo would not appreciate you saying that.
and yet I said it. So there you go.
Gone with
Anyway,
the Wind, same deal. Yeah.
now we're going to do our break thing. And if you've been paying attention, you'll recall that this is the point in the show where we again harangue you to please, please, please like and subscribe.
Harangue. That's a $5 word. Nicely done, David.
Thank you.
Yes, everyone who likes us in the next 5 minutes after we record will receive a free limited edition hand-drawn copy of the Boston album cover by whichever you prefer, or perhaps that Sean Cassidy style poster we were discussing.
All right.
Get ready for the Summer Olympic Games in track and field. Look for Madeline Manning Jackson, gold medal winner, 72 Olympics. Arkansas's Earl Bell learned to pole vault in his backyard, held a world record. In the broad jump, the 72 Olympic gold medal winner, Randy Williams. In the hurdle, South Carolina's Charles Foster, America's top hope for gold. The Summer Olympic Games, up close and personal, the ABC way.
All right, well, now we are back in 2025, getting ready for whatever the word for the 250th anniversary of the country is.
That word is semi-quincentennial, David.
That just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? What's the time for now?
It's time for us to play our brand new, beautiful Wormholes theme.
So that theme song means it's time for each of us to take our turn at sharing some random fact that we've learned this week or thing we've discovered or just, really whatever we want to talk about. And you get to go first, Dave.
All right. Well, I can't believe I even had a backup for this because I thought there was a reasonable chance it could come up in our review of 1976. But here it is. The toy that was the breakout of 1976, Slime.
Ooh, I remember Slime. Yeah.
And Slime has lasted. Like that
Yeah.
has stood the test of time. So yeah, it came back then in a green. Do you remember what
It was like a little egg
packaging was?
thing, right?
No. That was Silly Putty.
Oh.
No. Slime came, think Oscar the Grouch.
Was it a trash can? Yeah.
Yes, a green plastic trash can. Yes. And so, and it was made of, and I looked this up. It was made of guar gum and sodium borate, I don't know, borat, but better known as borax. And yeah, it was ubiquitous. I used that word already. I guess I need a better word to say that. But what's a better word than ubiquitous or another word?
It was everywhere, Dave.
It was everywhere. It was everywhere. Yes.
That would be the non-boarding school student way of saying it.
Oh, that's how it's going to be. Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, did you have Slime? I felt like everyone had Slime. Even my chintzy parents managed to cough out some money for Slime. It was probably a cheaper toy as well. I don't even know if it counts as a toy. It was just goo that.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure I had it. I don't have specific memory, but yeah, what I do remember is actually when my kids were little, I think it was my daughter, we made Slime at home.
Yeah,
and
it's still a thing.
Yeah, and it made just a massive mess. Is the big thing I remember from it. But yeah.
Slime as a word, by the way, existed many years before, but it obviously became a household word with the invention of slime. There was something that preceded it that wasn't that big. Slime was done by Mattel. There was a ripoff called Yuck. Do you remember Yuck? Yep. And then they got sued and it went away. And then of course, it happened in the 80s, and I'm sure it'll come up in our episode on whatever year, 83, 84. I got slimed.
Oh, Nickelodeon. Yeah.
No. Nickelodeon, yes, lots of slime. No, I'm talking Ghostbusters, David.
Oh,
Ghostbusters.
right, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
When he gets slimed. Yep. And then, Nickelodeon, not only was that like slime-like substance, which they called gack, which their improvement on slime was that gack made farting noises, evidently, and they even had a gack fountain at Nick headquarters. Or some kind of
you know a shocking amount about this, Dave.
I may or may not have watched a video on this last night.
Okay.
After midnight. So yes, now I am I'm pure. I have short-term slime knowledge.
Yeah.
I guess I should put a link to that video because it's pretty good. It's pretty fun. It's a great history.
All right. Put it in the show notes.
All right. Yes, we were always so thorough with those. Okay. How about you? What was your wormhole?
So my wormhole, I wanted to look into something, and I'm going to just sort of preface it at the start that the information I found was less exciting than I hoped it would be. But I was just thinking about the fact that we are, in all likelihood, a fair number of the people who are listening to this, hopefully not people who are watching the video, but people who are listening in their cars. That's how I do most of my podcast consumption. And so I started thinking about actually like when did the car radio become a thing? And I was sort of expecting it to be a more recent innovation, but as I looked into it, it turned out it actually radios were introduced into cars in the early 20s, when cars were really just becoming a thing that were commercially available. They were not standard equipment, obviously, and they were like big and bulky and drew a ton of power and not that practical for use, but they existed. The first radio designed specifically to be a car radio came in the 30s, and interestingly, it was the first product ever developed by a company called Motorola. who now their name actually makes sense when you think about it. Went on to bigger and
Yeah.
better things. There was a big push in, I think it was in the 30s. People kept trying to develop a record player for the car, which is of course not an easy thing to do with the movement that happens in an automobile.
Okay.
But
That could be the stupidest idea in the history of car
well,
stereo.
and so what they came up with that didn't really work, but that did sell a few anyway, was they had these record players that had a very, very heavy needle, that was designed to not jostle so much. But then, of course, you had to have specially made records to play it on, that wouldn't get broken by this big needle. And then they also had, it was a 16 and a third RPM, so it would be turning slower. So again, hopefully, it wouldn't. Um,
Like I said, stupidest idea in the history
it,
of car
it
stereo.
it did not work out. It didn't become standard,
Are there
obviously. And
did
then
did wait. So did those exist at any point, or was it all in pre-production and it never worked, so they never introduced it? Because
no,
I think it would be hilarious to like go buy one of these things and find a record that plays at 16 and a third and just put it on for pure entertainment.
we can try and find one. They were actually made apparently not in large numbers, and they were not like pre-installed in cars. It was an aftermarket thing that you had to buy and get put in. But it was a thing. And then of course the AM radio became standard in all cars in the 60s, and then FM came in the 70s, and then the CD players, and now the whole full control panel thing that we've got now that people are listening to us through, and that they will now be hearing the Wormhole's outro music through.
Okay, well, that was our Wormhole's outro. So fancy.
We are
And that
so
brings us
fancy, Dave.
yes, we are, and also just back on that Wormhole thing. I think I'm kind of fascinated that car stereos were introduced as early as you told us in the 20s.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too.
And also equally surprised that FM was a 70s thing. I would have thought that was 50s or 60s. I don't know.
FM didn't even exist until I think the very late 60s.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now it's a web domain. I mean,
Yeah.
how the world has changed. Our next episode, we will be back in guest mode because, as we explained earlier, we're going to alternate these Dave only with Dave's with guests episodes. And that's going to be with the great Bertis Downs, longtime lawyer and advisor to a tiny, obscure act known as
R.E.M, Dave. I am so excited about this.
Yes, that's going to be fun, and I know you're going to have extra smart questions because you went to public school.
There you go. And after the episode with Bertis, we'll be coming back to doing the year by year retrospective, and we'll be going with whatever comes next after 1976. I'm not sure how we're going to do that exactly.
Well, perhaps I'll just go out on a limb and say maybe 1977.
That could be the way it works. Yeah.
We could also we could jump like front and back era, like, so we're not like, we could go to 1990 and then come back to 77 after that.
That would be a more sophisticated plot arc approach. I feel like if we were the Stupid Gen X Tricks movie, but since we're the podcast, we should probably just be more linear.
Oh, really? You don't trust our listeners to be smart like that?
No, I don't trust. I don't trust us to be smart like that.
Oh, okay. All right, fine. Okay, well, we do have some closing theme music coming up. I think people are used to that.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. Okay, good. Well, we appreciate everyone listening. And I want to say good night. And as David's grandmother would say, Guy gesund.
Gay gesund, Dave.
Oh, yes.
Go in good health.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. What was her name? Your grandma's name?
Lily Rudenberg.
Grandma Lily. Oh, that's a good name. Grandma Lily. All right, we'll light a candle for Grandma Lily. And in the meantime, we want everyone to know that Stupid Gen X Tricks is produced by the Daves, with art by TJ McCoy, theme music by Amana Bassi, and Wormhole's Mayhem by Supermassive. Thank you, everyone. Good night and good luck.